You know, the story of Paris Saint-Germain, it's so much more than just a football story. It's this high-stakes drama of business, branding, and, believe it or not, two near-fatal collapses. It's really all about a relentless, almost impossible ambition to conquer the world. A revolution that, honestly, should never have worked.
So, to really get PSG, you've got to picture Paris back in the late 1960s. I mean, this place was the global center for everything cool. Art, fashion, culture. But when it came to football, it was a total desert. The city's famous old clubs had just faded away. For a capital like Paris, that was kind of embarrassing. So the pressure was on to create a team that wasn't just good at football, but a team that felt like Paris.
And that really brings us to the big question here. How on earth did a club that was basically born from this messy divorce, a club that was left for dead not once but twice, become the global superpower we know today? This wasn't some team born with a silver spoon. No, it was forged in crisis, ripped apart right at the start, and then decades later, it came this close to disappearing all over again. So yeah, how did it survive? And more than that, how did it end up on top?
All right, let's dive right into that origin story. And really, it all starts with a crisis. You could almost call it the club's original sin, this foundational trauma that honestly shaped everything that came after it. Okay, so PSG was willed into existence through this kind of strange but totally necessary marriage of convenience. You had Paris FC, who had all the cash and ambition, but, no team. And then you had Stade Saint-Germain, who had the players, but not the big city clout. And here's the wildest part. The whole thing was fan-funded. We're talking 20,000 subscriptions. It was the first time ever in French football history that the fans literally bought a club into existence. Just wild.
But that beautiful marriage? Yeah, it barely lasted 2 years. The Paris City Council, who held all the money, they basically forced a brutal divorce. They wanted a purely Parisian team and made the club rip itself in two. And just look at the split. It was devastating for one side. Paris FC got literally everything. The pro players, the cash, the spot in Division 1, and Paris Saint-Germain, they were stripped bare. All they had left was the name, their amateur players, and a one-way ticket down to the 3rd division. This was, for all intents and purposes, the club's first death.
But here's where the story gets really good, because out of those ashes, we see the club's first massive pivot. This is the story of how a team with absolutely nothing reinvented itself and built an identity that, honestly, still exists today. And the key figure in this whole rebirth? A fashion designer. His name was Daniel Hechter. He comes in, takes over in '73, and he just gets it. He understood something that was absolutely crucial. In Paris, you can't just be a football club. You've got to have style. You need that glamour.
And man, did he deliver. He gave PSG its most iconic symbols, the very foundations of the club. First, he secured them a permanent home, the legendary Parc des Princes. Second, he designed their visual identity, that famous Hechter shirt, right? The one that blends the blue and red of Paris with the white of Saint-Germain. And third, and most importantly, he brought success. He led the club on this unbelievable, meteoric rise back to Division 1 by 1974. And get this, the very same year they came up, their old rivals Paris FC went down. Talk about poetic justice. The power in Paris had totally shifted. For good.
So as PSG is getting bigger, it needs what every good story needs, a villain. And that villain became Olympique de Marseille. In the early 90s, the TV company that owned PSG, Canal+, had a brilliant idea. They knew that a great rivalry is just great for business. So they intentionally hyped this clash of cultures. It was perfect. You had the cool, stylish capital against the tough, gritty port city. North versus South, new money versus old power. This whole thing, Le Classique, was basically a manufactured war that gave French football the must-see drama it was missing.
But you know how these stories go. After the glory years of the 90s, and they even won a European trophy, PSG just starts to fade. And this brings us to the club's second brush with death, a time when it came just minutes away from complete extinction.
So the decline started slowly in the late 90s, but the real nosedive happens in 2006. An investment firm, Colony Capital, buys the club, and their whole strategy was about profit, not performance. The team got stripped for parts. Fast forward to the 2007-08 season, and the club is an absolute mess. We're talking total chaos, instability, and they're just sinking like a stone. It all came down to one single day, the final match day in May 2008.
I mean, can you just imagine the tension? This quote, it just says it all. A horrible campaign from start to finish. PSG, the pride of Paris, was staring down the barrel of relegation, a fall that honestly could have killed the club for good. Everyone was just bracing for impact.
And then, a miracle. Seriously, in that final game, they need a win to stay up. It's 1-1, minutes left on the clock. PSG is going down. But then, in the 88th minute, a striker named Amara Diane scores. And it's probably one of the ugliest goals you'll ever see, but it was the most important goal in the club's history. That one scuff shot, that one moment, saved them from total extinction. It was the pivot point. Without it, none of what happens next would have been possible.
And that's because just 3 years after that miracle, the club wasn't just reborn, it was transformed. This time, it wasn't about being a stylish Parisian club. This was about becoming a global superpower with a level of wealth that was just unimaginable.
So in 2011, everything changes. Qatar Sports Investments, QSI for short, buys the club. And this wasn't just a new owner. This was a total game changer. We're talking about state-backed funding with a goal that was as simple as it was audacious. Make PSG the biggest and best club on the planet. Their slogan said it all, right? Dream bigger.
And the change, it was immediate. It was absolute. I mean, you just have to look at these two bars. On the left, that's all the trophies the club won in its first 41 years. And on the right, well, that's the explosion of success since the takeover. QSI didn't just make them competitive again, they created a monopoly, a level of dominance that French football had just never seen before.
If you need one symbol for this new era, it was just pure, raw money. And the ultimate flex was this number right here, 222 million euros. Back in 2017, that was the world record transfer fee they paid for just one guy, the Brazilian superstar Neymar. It was more than a transfer, it was a statement. This was the Galactico strategy but on steroids. The plan was simple. Buy the biggest names on the planet, Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, all for one single obsessive goal, win the Champions League.
And you know what? After years of trying and some absolutely heartbreaking failures along the way, they did it. They finally reached the top of the mountain. But what's so fascinating to me is what they did next. A really surprising pivot that kind of brings this whole story full circle.
In the 2024-25 season, the dream became a reality. PSG finally conquered Europe. They won the Champions League, their holy grail. But, as you can see, they didn't just stop there. Nope, they won everything. Every single competition they were in. A historic, unprecedented sextuple. It felt like the project was finally complete. Mission accomplished. But then, right at the peak of their power, they did something nobody expected. They pivoted. Hard. The club basically declared that the bling-bling era was over. The very superstars who got them to the top, Messi, Neymar, and then even Kylian Mbappe, all of them were allowed to walk away. The new philosophy was a total 180. The club is bigger than any one player. The focus wasn't on buying stars anymore. It was about building a real, sustainable team.
So that leaves us with this really fascinating question for the future, doesn't it? I mean, the whole superstar strategy, for all the drama and all the insane expense, it worked. It got them the ultimate prize. So now that they've thrown that playbook out the window, can they actually build a lasting dynasty? Is this new team-first identity the real key to the future? Or was that whole dream bigger era just a necessary, chaotic, and explosive revolution they had to go through to get to the top? Well, the next chapter in this incredible story is still unwritten.